Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hi, my name is Kat. If you are not new, welcome back. So today's video is going to be a short, sweet, simple one, and basically I'm doing this video to kind of help you guys understand a little bit more about how I started counting in my macros. Like I said, if you are new to my channel, or even if you're not new, just a little bit of background information. So lately I have been on a fitness weight loss journey that some of you may be following along with me. And basically I started off my journey really taking it slow, and then around March of this year is when I decided to really adapt to the macro approach, or flexible dieting, macro counting, macronutrients, whatever you want to call it. Since posting about my weight loss and my fitness, I get a lot of comments from people saying that they are still a little confused as to what the macro approach really is, that it sounds a little complicated and kind of discourages people from trying it. Basically, I'm making this video to help you understand how I started the macro approach, because I definitely feel like I have learned so much more from the beginning up until now. And so I understand that it can be a little confusing because I actually was introduced to the macronutrient diet a few years ago. It definitely isn't anything new. It's been around for a long time. And I remember when I first looked into it or heard about it, I'm pretty sure it was like on social media. So there I was, Googled really quickly, like macro counting, what the hell it is. And I remember just reading, you know, tracking your fats, proteins, and carbs, and I was like, whoa, this is already like way too complicated. I definitely don't think this is realistic. Forget that idea. Basically, in a nutshell, this video will be about how I started the macro approach this time around, what I did differently, how it worked, and hopefully some tips to help some of you who may be wanting to try it. Just like any other diet, and I say diet in quotation marks because I really don't consider this whole macro counting a diet. I definitely am not on a strict meal plan. I'm not restricting food groups. Really is a flexible diet. So I think the first thing, if you are a beginner to counting macros, is you need to understand what macronutrients are. I'm not gonna sit here and explain to you what macronutrients are because I am not a food nutritionist, scientist, whatever you want to call it. I am just a regular person. I have no background in science and food or anything like that. So I will link down below videos that really help me understand what macronutrients are. So I feel like these videos, one especially from Christine from Gauge Girl Training, her videos are so informative and they teach you so much about nutrition that after watching so many of her videos and other people on YouTube as well, the light bulb finally went off in my head, and I wish I could go back in time and like slap myself for being so silly thinking that this was going to be complicated, when in reality it is probably the most uncomplicated thing and most uncomplicated diet that you can do. So anyways, before we go on any further, and if you have no idea what macronutrients are, pause this video, click on the links below, watch these videos, understand macronutrients and how they're calculated, okay? Once you get a good understanding of macros and what they are, let's jump back in. So after watching that video, the second thing is going to be figuring out your numbers. This is where I think people stop, because this is where I stopped years back when I was looking into macros and all that junk. I was like, I have no idea how to calculate my macros. That's a lot of math I do not want to do. I'm not even that great at math, so I'm not even going to attempt it. Forget it. This is a lost cause. So thankfully, there are so many helpful tools on the internet now that can help you calculate your macros. The very first macronutrient calculator that I used was actually from Katie Hearn Fitness on her website. She has a calculator. Basically, in a nutshell, what you're doing is you're gonna input your weight, your height, your activity level, your age, and your goal, whether you wanna gain, do body recomposition, or you wanna lose weight. Once you plug all that in, it's super simple. You just click calculate at the end, and she's gonna give you, or her website's gonna give you, one, how many calories you should be consuming on a day to reach your goal, and then two, the breakdown of how many grams of fats, carbs, and proteins you need to reach your goals. Now, I definitely was skeptical at first because I was like, hey, what is this one calculator? how do I know that this one calculator is calculating everything right? So I did do multiple calculators at the beginning. There are so many. Literally just go onto Google, type in macronutrient calculator. You're gonna get flooded with a whole bunch of websites that can do that for you. Do several of them to see if you are getting more or less the same numbers. If your proteins and carbs and fat grams are off by like 5 grams here and there from each website, you'll more than likely be okay. You're still falling within that range. And if it's like extremely different, then definitely check to see that you're inputting in the right information on all the websites. Now, if you're able to, and if you don't mind, I would suggest actually contacting Christine from Gauge Girl Training, because she can do a whole consultation with you over the phone where she'll get all that information from you and she'll actually work out the numbers. This is what she does and it is amazing. For those of you who don't know, I started off my macro counting on my own. Now that I am about less than 10 pounds away from my goal weight, I am now working with Christine, so I did actually have that same phone call conversation with her where we discussed my goals. She got all my information, my height, my weight, my activity level, and she gave me my set of macros. And it was actually pretty spot on to the same macros that I was following with the Katie Hearn calculators. So there were a few adjustments that we did make because of my goals and how I want my physique to ultimately look. So she's able to adjust my proteins, my fats, my carbs to where it'll get me closer to my goal. So if, like I said, that's why if you're able to and if you can, I highly suggest contacting her directly, because she'll really fine-tune your goals or fine-tune your macros to reach those goals. So now that you have your numbers, now that you understand what macros are, the third thing to do is going to be download an app. The apps that are out there are so easy to use, and me personally, I use MyFitnessPal. That is just the app that I was introduced to at first a long time ago, and it works. Another very popular one that I hear about all the time is LifeSum. So with the app, people have asked me exactly how I log in my food. I'm gonna go through an example of what I've logged in for today, just to kind of more or less show you guys what the app has going on. So I'm gonna do a screen record on here because I hopefully think I can upload this footage into the video. So here we have my screen for today. You can see at the top it has my calorie goal, which is at 1400 right now, and then it's going to start subtracting the food that you log in plus any exercise that you want to log in, and then it gives you the remaining calories for that day. If you go to the home screen, you can see that it shows me how many carbs that I have left, how many fats, and how many proteins, and how many calories. So back to the diary. You can see here that I already input my lunch for today. So for lunch, I had a ham sandwich with some pop chips. So you're gonna input the 2 slices of Ezekiel bread that I had, the 2 ounces or 56 grams of honey ham from Hillshire Farms, the slice of Colby Jack cheese, and the pop chips. Other additives that I had today were like the lettuce, the onions, the pickles, and some hot sauce. Those essentially have pretty much 0 calories. I don't find the need to input that in. If you really, really want to, you can, but I kind of don't input foods that have 0 calories. So all in all, it shows that I had 430 calories with my lunch, and I had 51 grams of carbs, 14 grams of fat, and 24 grams of protein. So that is why you see the deduction here on the home screen, and it shows you how many that I have left. So depending on how many macronutrients I have left in the day, that's how much I can still eat as far as proteins, fats, and carbs, and of course calories. So basically this is what I do every day. It logs everything in. So after you download the app and you get yourself familiar with it, the 4th thing that I would suggest and what I did is just take it slow. I know you have these goals now. If this is like a new thing for you, the whole macro approach, it's gonna be very alarming when you start logging in your food and you start to realize what you're eating. For me personally, that was the biggest thing that I experienced and that I learned. When I first started plugging in my food and looking at my macros, I was shocked at the amount of carbs that I was eating in a day and how little protein I was eating in a day. It was almost it was actually scary how little of food groups I was eating and how much bad stuff I was eating compared to good stuff. So, and it is a hard transition. I went from eating almost like over 200, sometimes even 300 grams of carbs in a day to now eating, I think I'm allowed 130 grams of carbs in a day. So it's a big difference, and you're gonna see it like as far as when you're making your food choices. You're gonna see that, oh my gosh, I would have ate all of this, all of these chips or all of this bread. But now with the macro approach, you can still have it. You're just gonna have to limit yourself to fit your macros. But as you go on, you start to learn how to incorporate more of what you're lacking and start to reduce more of what you're in excess of. Me personally, I wish I would have done this sooner, but I didn't. So my tip for you is going to be invest in a food scale. So this is the food scale that I have been working with. I just got it at Target. It's pretty basic, plain Jane. I definitely would recommend a scale that is gonna give you different units. So this one does measure ounces and grams. So it's really helpful because some labels on the food packages, they'll say a suggested serving. It could be either in ounces or in grams. And then of course, besides the food scale, do get used to using measuring tools. So I will still use like my tablespoon, teaspoon. I'll still use my cup measurements, just because we think that we're able to eyeball some of the stuff. And I think once you get used to like measuring out your food, you are able to eyeball your measurements more or less. Because I know now for me, if I'm out at a restaurant, I can more or less tell how many ounces of chicken I'm eating, for example, or whatever. Because obviously I don't have my food scale at a restaurant. But at the beginning, it is a lot more helpful because you'll be surprised as to how many ounces of meat looks like, you know, actually looks like, and then what you thought it looked like on the plate. So you could be robbing yourself of eating more food, or you could be overindulging in certain things. Like for example, the biggest one I can give is salad dressings. Salad dressings, recommended serving on most bottles is gonna be 2 tablespoons. And for some people, like we think of a serving of dressing and like we're drizzling that shit like on there, like hardcore. And you're actually probably eating maybe 2 or 3 servings and not the recommended 1 serving of 2 tablespoons. So the 6th tip that I can give to you at the beginning when you're counting your macros is don't hold yourself back from going out to eat at restaurants or fast food places. You would be surprised at the things that you can still eat at fast food places and at restaurants that can still fit your macros. The thing is, and I feel like the key is, know ahead of time that you are going to be going out to eat, so that way you can look at the menu ahead of time. So for example, if I know we're going to be going out to eat, you know, tomorrow evening, we pick a place, I want to look at the menu at least like an hour or 2 before we're actually going to go, so I can more or less see what's on the menu, and I can already start to see what I want to either plug in for the meal, and that way I know how to work the rest of my day around it. Or even if it is a last minute like change of plans and we decide to go out to dinner, I can see what macronutrients I have left in my day, and I'll look at the menu and see what fits my macros. But I feel like the biggest key and the biggest thing to help you out is to look at the menu ahead of time, because more often than not, we go to a restaurant already hungry, we're looking at the menu, and we are gonna be eating with our eyes. We are seeing everything that's on the menu, and of course, we're probably gonna wanna go for the least healthiest choice because we're just hungry and we're not really thinking about what we've already ate that day or what our body needs for the rest of the day. So go in there with, you know, your macros in mind and pick accordingly. And then lastly, the last tip again kind of goes back to not being so hard on yourself. It's easy to get really caught up into macro counting and being so harsh on yourself when you're not meeting your numbers, but it's okay. Like I said, I believe there's a rule that if you're like still under your calorie intake, but your macros are off, like let's say you've already exceeded your fats, but you're still under calorie intake because you could still eat more carbs and proteins, you can step outside the boundary lines either more or less by 10% with your carbs and proteins, and I believe it's 5% with your fats. So You do have some wiggle room. Once you really get a strong hold of the routine and what it really means to count your macros, you're probably gonna fall in love with it, because I know for me and for most people, yes, you do need to be in a caloric deficit in order to lose weight, because you wanna be consuming less calories than you burn. But I have done the whole calorie counting thing. That was my first approach at the beginning of this year during the months of January and February. Like I said, I took it really slow with this fitness journey, and I was just tracking my calories. And with just tracking my calories, I think I only lost like 5 pounds within those first 2 months. So 5 pounds in 2 months isn't that much. And I also was like really not happy with like the foods that I was eating, because I was trying to just look for low calorie foods, which is a huge no-no, because some low calorie foods can be like 0 grams of protein and like basically all carbs. And for me and my goals, I needed more protein. So you could eat like 1,000 calories in just carbs, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna meet your goals, because you're not being mindful of consuming enough of the fats and proteins that your body also could use. So hopefully this video kind of gives you an idea and a little bit of an encouragement to look into the macro approach. Definitely don't knock something until you try it, especially if it does seem intriguing to you. Just take the time to learn, and you'll definitely more than likely have the light bulb go off, because that's all that it took for me. I just needed to really get myself invested in learning and trying to understand what this was, and then finally it literally was like a switch that just like went off in my head, and I was like, oh, okay, that's what macro counting really is. If this video was helpful for you, please give it a thumbs up. If you are not subscribed to my channel already, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button. Also, make sure to hit the little bell so you're notified when I do have new uploads. If you guys have any questions about the whole macro counting, please leave me them down below in the comments, and I'll get back to you as fast as I can. And let me know what you would like to see next, as far as either beauty or health and fitness. But that's it for this video, and I wish you guys the best of luck if you are gonna start your whole macro counting approach, and I hope you enjoy it just as much as I have. So I'll see you all in my next video. Bye guys.